Welcome back to The Chosen Journey with Steve Karsay. And today, folks, you're going to be in for a treat because for the next several episodes, you're going to be enjoying some amazing baseball and life topics. I am really, really jazzed. Steve is really, really jazzed. Steve never knows where this thing is always going to go, but we're going to cover a lot of borders today, Steve.
Oh, great to be back, Jonathan. Looking forward to what we're going to discuss today. And you always have a surprise, so it's nice to kind of just jump in and see where we go with things.
You're going to be really enjoying the first segue. It literally just hit me like moments before we went on the air. And I'm like, wow, the world works in really, really funny ways. But before we get started, we always, I'm usually wearing a unique shirt. You're wearing a unique hat. Which hat are we wearing today, Steve?
Hey, wearing the barrel man for the doubleheader sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday over the San Francisco Giants.
Wow, that's a beauty. I like that
It's a
one.
really cool hat. I like it. It's one of those trucker hats that is fun to wear.
He looks extremely ferocious.
Hey, when you have the barrel man rolling down the tube there in the outfield, it's always a good day.
It also matches obviously the colors of the Brewers in the Steve Karsay set for the Chosen Journey that I always have ready here, and matches very well with my shirt, which I did not wear for the Pirates per se, but for a interesting player from the past.
Oh, there you go, Dave Parker.
That's pretty
Did you
awesome.
get that on your journey to Pittsburgh?
I did get that on the trip to Pittsburgh. Steve and I talked about on that trip, our common love of the city of Pittsburgh and the great fans and atmosphere. It's breathtaking every time we visit Pittsburgh and be in that ballpark. And I was a huge Cobra fan and was so pleased to see, because usually they don't have a lot of Hall of Fame stuff or old timer stuff. They've decided that based on their quadruple A team in there, that the money is not going to be well spent on putting jerseys of existing players. Let's go to the past. That's where the Bucks are. So there was Parker stuff as far as the eye can see. I had a choice between this shirt and the Dave Parker rookie card, which they put on a t-shirt from 1974. And I thought, this is pretty neat. So I decided to put Dave on for today. And fits very well into a segue because I was doing some research, Steve, about our intro topic. Now, you never got the pleasure of pitching against Dave Parker, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. I don't remember if I've ever faced Dave Parker, but I don't believe I have. It was a different era.
The problem was you made your major league debut, I believe, in 1993, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Well, there was an issue with that, Steve, because if you had just got in a little sooner in 1991, you could have done two things in that year. Number one, you would have faced Dave Parker in his retirement year. So Dave finished off his career in 1991. Do you know which team Dave Parker retired with, actually?
I am going to guess the Oakland A's.
You would be incorrect, my friend. You would have to run through the roster. And one of those, like, he played on that team. Dave Parker played in my backyard for a cup of coffee. Literally, he stopped off at Tim Hortons in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, played a handful of games and said, I am done with this sport. This is not for me anymore. So Dave Parker actually retired as a Toronto Blue Jay. I know he gave it a lot of thought about which team he would go in if he got into the Hall. I know the Jays must have been up there for him, but no, Dave did not make the Hall, unfortunately. You look at the stats, and it's, again, one of those things of the Hall of Fame versus the Hall of Very Good. And I love Parker. I love his era. Injuries did him in a little bit. The move to the DH. The DH was not universally recognized for a Hall of Fame spot in his era, as it is with David Ortiz, Edgar Martinez, etc. But Parker had a really great career, nothing to sneeze at. And man, was he the man back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, he definitely was. He's a fierce competitor and definitely one of those guys who, when he walked or stepped in the box, was a big presence. And, I'm sure pitchers feared him at times when he was hot. And, he was definitely a solid player.
I loved his swing. I loved his home run trot. He had the the shake. I think that in Major League, the movie Major League with Jack Parkman, I think they actually took that off Dave Parker because the Dave Parker home run trot was very famous. Now, Dave Parker, if he did play with the Oakland A's in that 1991 season, would have had a very interesting highlight to his career because he very likely would have met the Queen of England. So the Queen of England actually watched one Major League Baseball game, which she just recently passed, of course, and everybody's mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth II, who just passed away at the ripe age of 96 on Thursday, September 8th. This being a predominantly baseball program, we, of course, have to find out when the Queen ever did attend an MLB game, and she did. She came out on May 15th, 1991, and the Queen watched the Oakland A's face the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore.
You are full of nuggets today.
Dave Parker, Queen Elizabeth, you see? So I was thinking, man, Steve got in 1991, and he was obviously playing with the A's when he did get called up. He would have been there, and he would have met the Queen of England. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say you did not meet Queen Elizabeth II ever.
That's correct as well. I did not meet the Queen.
She did not come out to New York, Arizona, spring training. She was nowhere to be found in any of your baseball parts.
That's correct. Nowhere to be found in any travels that I did. And I did travel quite a bit across the United States with very many teams, but never had the opportunity to grace the Queen.
And I can tell you, I've had much less travels than you. I've traveled somewhat in the world and have never met the Queen either. Never got to sniff near the Queen either. But living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we are a sovereign nation as far as I know. So I don't believe we are under the monarchy's rule, but we still honor them on our monies and on their travels. So we still celebrate. So Canada is in deep mourning right now over the loss of the Queen. But we do know that the Queen did make it to a baseball game, at least in her life. She did watch the A's and the Orioles in Baltimore. How long would you guess she lasted at the game, Steve?
I would say 3 innings.
You would again be incorrect, my friend. This is not your day on game shows. She left during the second. She could barely take an inning, and the Queen had to go off. But the A's did win that game 6-3. And Dennis Eckersley got the save. So a little bit of Oakland A's, Steve Karsay, Queen Elizabeth folklore. Steve was 2 years removed from meeting the Queen.
Yes, I was. I will say I did travel to London and I walked in front of the palace. So if she was in the palace, I did come within a few hundred yards of her at some point without seeing her.
But she did not wave to you from the tower.
I did not get a wave.
So this is none of our topics, by the way, folks, but we just have to introduce everything because Steve and I have not had a taping since we had Mr. Fred Clare on, he was an amazing guest, an amazing fountain of knowledge. So we're getting back to baseball roots now after having a guest on. We have so many things to cover, but as I'm planning this out, Steve, the world is in shock over the loss of Queen Elizabeth. So I thought we'd have to address this because there is a baseball connection to the Queen. I know she would appreciate that. The Queen's passing is called D-Day. So for any of you that need to know, September 8th is now known as D-Day. So September 9th becomes D-Day +1, September 10th, D-Day +2, etc. So a little bit of monarchy knowledge for you. She reigned close to 70 years, the longest reigning king queen in British history. So interesting stuff.
Yes, very impressive.
Now I got to ask you, Steve, because I was thinking about this morning as I was taking my morning shower after yoga practice. If I am King Charles, not Prince Charles, because he did automatically become king, even though they have the coronation, but he is now known as King Charles. So if I was King Charles, would I rather be the King of England or would I rather be the owner of the New York Yankees? If you had to choose, which would you take?
Wow, that's a tough one, to be quite honest with you. I think there's a lot less stress being the owner of the New York Yankees. So I think that's the route I might have to go instead of having to worry about a whole country and pleasing them and making them happy.
I agree with you 1,000%. If you gave me the choice, I will take the ownership of the Yankees any day over King of England. I don't think I'd want the stress. Believe it or not, it is not even a 24/7 job. It's a 36/7 job. I don't think it ever ends. And I heard that the paparazzi in New York is a little persistent. The paparazzi in England is very persistent. So I would take the New York paparazzi over the England paparazzi any day of the week. But I'm sure, people were asking Charles all along the way, would you skip it? Would you let your son William become king? He said, no, I'm going to follow the tradition. He's been waiting for this. And of course, he's sad over the passing of his mother. But man, it must be so sweet to be king of England. So he must be very, very excited once, obviously, the transition happens. And Camilla is going to be a form of a queen. She's going to be the queen consort. Don't really know what
whatever that means.
She's queen by marriage, but they feel the need to say not queen. She's the queen consort. I'm sure she would take it in a second. If a woman was the queen of England and she brought me and I was the king consort, I would take that in a second. So hats off to Camilla Parker Bowles, who is now the queen consort, Prince Charles. It's a lot of transition happening in England right now as we are transitioning into the playoff season and highlights in Major League Baseball. And note that the queen and baseball are intertwined. So I hope she enjoyed her inning and a bit of baseball. So now going into topic number 1. I did not wear this shirt in regards to our topic, but we are very much in the thick of thins of the playoff race. Okay. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, are not going to be making the playoffs this year. They are not in last place, but they're pretty darn close. It's amazing, Steve. You see the teams right at the top. There's like the 1% of those teams. There's the, 1 or 5% of teams right at the bottom, and there's a bunch of them stuck in the middle. Yeah. And this is also the year where you have, I think, 3,000 wildcard teams. It feels like it, but there's 3 in each league. So pretty cool. 2022 playoffs are on. And taking a look, see as far as where the standings are and where the wild cards are going. Some pretty good races still going on, eh?
Yeah, in both the American and National League, I think it's down to the last wild card between 3 different teams in the National League, which is obviously the Brewers being on the outside right now, 2.5 games out or so, and Philly and San Diego trying to hold on to the last 2 spots. That should be a tight race coming down the end. You got Philly playing the NL East a lot, and then you got the Brewers playing a lot of teams in their own division who they struggled with a little bit this year, let's be honest, but they've been injured. But they're really going to have to put a winning streak together, I think, to, gain that opportunity. I think their playoff percentage now is down to like 33% to make the playoffs. So, it'll be an interesting race. It'll definitely be one to watch. The American League, I think, besides the division winners and whatnot, I think the closest team to the last playoff wild card spot is the Baltimore Orioles. They're like 3.5 games out as we go into today. So again, the odds aren't with them, but if they can put a streak together in the next 10 days, they can make things very interesting.
Well, Steve has his stuff always memorized, and I got to pull it up because I'm not that swift. So I say, let's have some fun with this. Let's look at the American League. Let's look at the National League. Let's look at the divisions. Let's look at the wild cards, and let's see where everybody's at. And of course, we go into MLB.com, and where do they put us with first? American League, and of course, the AL East. Buddy, what is going on with the Yankees right now? There is crisis time in New York. Have they fired everybody yet and brought in replacements, or what's the story?
They have not fired everybody. They have obviously some injuries with their bullpen. In my opinion, they're a one-dimensional team. They score a lot of runs on home runs, and they don't manufacture and put the ball in play as much as they should. The Brewers are quite similar to what the Yankees have been. If you look at the top teams that have hit home runs and score their percentage of runs on home runs, you will find those 2 teams at the top or near the top in that category. But I think the Yankees went through a hot streak when they middle of the season, everybody was healthy. Stanton was in the lineup at that particular time. You have Rizzo out, DJ LeMayu's on the IR. Judge has been carrying that team. They got to get a couple other guys to pitch in, manufacture some runs, and their pitching needs to hold up. But they're a force to be reckoned with. When they get hot, they're as good as anybody in Major League Baseball. And I just feel like obviously they're going to get in the playoffs, and they might run into a buzzsaw with a team that can score some runs and manufacture runs. But that's, in my opinion, what they're going to have to do to make a deep run and have a chance to win a World Series again. I think their last World Series was 2009. There's a lot of talk and a lot of things going on in New York right now about what the drought is to get to the World Series.
I'm going to be saving this for its own topic because it's that big, in my opinion, what's going on in the Central, specifically the Brewers and the Cards. And I want to save the Montgomery talk for then. But the one thing is consistent with New York fans, and this has come up, Milwaukee fans as well with the trade of Hader, trades can really, make a team explode all of a sudden, light a fire, or it can deflate. And Montgomery was not doing what he's doing in St. Louis in New York. But man, I think those fans are just hurt. Their man. Look at his stats. Look how good it'd be in our lineup right now if we had him going for us every 5 days. But it doesn't work that way, does it, Steve?
No, it doesn't. I mean, there are a lot of different things that go into that. You got to know what he was like in the New York clubhouse, what he liked pitching in New York, if he liked it there. The ballparks are completely different. Pitching in Yankee Stadium is a different animal as far as the fences and the distance and balls that you give up in the air, as opposed to St. Louis, which is a great pitcher's ballpark. The defense plays into it. I think the Cardinals defense is top in the National League or in Major League Baseball. So, balls on the ground or balls in the air, get swallowed up a little bit more in St. Louis because of their defense. Obviously, Arenado there, Edman, they got a ton of guys in the outfield who can cover ground, who are young players. So there are a lot of factors that go into a guy's numbers and how he pitches. And I think that's why a lot of teams in the front office come up with these obscure stats or obscure numbers that they can run on their own computer to see how a guy is going to do in their ballpark and see what the best fit is.
I love a team like Baltimore that's playing on house money at this point, nothing to lose. Let's just go for it, have fun every day. And they're making it interesting. I mean, they're above 500. They may well have finished the season above 500, which nobody really saw that coming. And the Red Sox are pulling up in last. That tells you a lot about that division. But, the rumor of the Babe Ruth reversal and Judge going to the Red Sox, I don't see that happening. I think they're going to pull up the Brinks truck and do whatever it takes, but you never know in life. If you're a betting man, you see Judge come back?
Yeah, I see Judge playing in New York. He's a mainstay there. He's the face of the franchise right now. I mean, what a tremendous player he is. It was the same situation, I feel like, Bernie Williams when he was with the Yankees and playing center field, and the Red Sox made him an offer, and then the Yankees came in and said, we're not going to let him go to Boston. I think it's the same thing. Will Judge's agent use Boston as leverage if they want him? I don't know, but at the end of the day, I think he's going to be handsomely paid for his talents, and wherever he ends up, which in my opinion will be in New York, I think that'll be a really good thing. He'll be, he's trending to be, the Derek Jeter of this kind of era of having a Yankee play in pinstripes for a long time, and then we got to see if he stays healthy, and he's had some troubles with that his first few years, but overall now he's been fairly healthy and stayed in that lineup, and you look at the damage that he's doing, and he's a very impressive player.
When he's out there, I've seen him twice this year. I saw him in Toronto, I saw him in Pittsburgh as well, and he's like a monster among boys, just the sheer size of him. And the crowds, these were visiting parks, and they loved him. Like, they're not the home team for the Yankees, and as soon as he comes up, everybody lost their mind. Like, that's the kind of player he is in Major League Baseball. So I agree with you on there as well. I think the Yankees will pull it out. I think, in my mind, you're never going to have a hot streak the whole year. You're not going to go 162-0, right? So
that's right.
If there's a time to get cold before the playoffs and then pick up steam right before the playoffs, if that can happen. That's what I think will happen to the Yankees. I think they'll put it together around the last week or so, and I think they'll go in good place going to the end of the season. I see them squeaking it out in the division, but I think that the Rays and Jays will make it very tight for them, who are both clawing in that wild card. So the East will be very well presented in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have three teams in the playoffs, in my opinion. You know, and that's just the way baseball's lined up, right? They added the extra wild card, and even though the teams beat up on each other, they also beat up on the other divisions and rack up some wins. So it should be a fun last 24, 25 games down the stretch in a couple different divisions, and then you know the playoffs start in October at some point, and it'll be fun to watch these new matchups, how they do it, and then the first two teams who ultimately gain a huge advantage, finish first and second in their division, getting a bye where they can set up their pitching and you know get a nice little rest moving into the second round and watch the other teams play.
And that opening round will go really quick. I mean, 3 games, 3 consecutive games. It's in one park. I mean, it should go very fast. And you know, your season being make or break on one series, 3 games, but that's the cost of doing business when you can't finish in the top of a division. So I think that'll be great. The similar division is the Central now, and taking a look at Cleveland, Minnesota, and the White Sox, and they are in a cat fight. Also, I don't think that anybody saw that happening with Cleveland, but they've been consistent all year. Kansas City and Detroit already making their plans for golf and for travel for the offseason. They are long done, as expected, and you know, not considered a very strong division. But it's, again, all you take is one team, get hot. You never know where they're going to go in the playoffs, right?
That's true. It's going to be the best of the worst in that division, right? I mean, I think the best team in that division overall, and I've said this from the very beginning, is the White Sox. They have enough pitching. They have tremendous talent on the field with their hitting. They just haven't played up to their capabilities, and they've hung around long enough with the other two teams not being able to put them away with Cleveland and Minnesota. They're also just kind of hanging around too. So it's whoever gets hot these last 20 games in the Central. And I know that I think 8 of the next 11 games, if I read that correctly, the Twins play the Guardians. So that will kind of knock one of those two teams out if the White Sox can handle their own business, and then it'll be a 2-team race come down the stretch for that division.
I apologize in advance if I said Indians. It's very hard for me to get past this to the Guardians, but they are the Guardians. You are correct. Thank you for correcting me, Steve. So I'll just call them Cleveland. How about that? I won't even recognize them. But I agree with you as well. I like that White Sox team a lot. They do scare me, and if everybody does come together for them, I like mostly because I like their pitching the most. You know, the other division is just, you know, this is already decided in spring training. Houston already got their bye to the playoffs. I don't even know why they bothered playing this year, but they're there. Let's see where Verlander's at. That's going to be whether you have a healthy Verlander or not. I think that's a difference of, you know, advancing in the playoffs or getting eliminated.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think this little calf injury and the time on the IL is going to serve him well. It's his first year back after Tommy John. He's already logged a ton of innings. He's 39 years old, and you know, a little rest might be good for that body and refresh him as the season ends. Let him make a couple starts at the tail end of the season here and get him ready for the playoffs, because ultimately that's what it's all about, right? You go into the playoffs and you want to have your best horses there. They have a tremendous offense. Their position players are second to none. And you know, Seattle, I thought was going to give them a little bit better run than they did, but Seattle's been a little bit inconsistent, but still a very good ball club. They put 14 wins in a row together at one point during the season. So, you know, those two teams represent the West very well.
Seattle, they run their team like I used to run my fantasy baseball team. It felt like every day we need a trade, a pickup, something like that. I love it. It's fun if you're a fan of the team, but I think from a consistency player standpoint, like let the group gel together a little bit. We don't have to keep overhauling every year, every 6 months. But that being said, they are right in there. Like they're right in there. They may very well actually make a wild. Like right now, if the season closed today, they're in.
Yeah.
But on that token, imagine Tampa Bay, Toronto, Baltimore. Theoretically, all 3 of them can take the wild card spots, which would be obscene. But so it's so neck and neck in that little squadron of the wild card that I think this is going to go right to the last game or two of the season. So the wild card right now will be Tampa, Seattle, and Toronto, but I don't think it's going to last like that come the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race come down the end. I just think Seattle has a little bit easier schedule playing some of those teams in the West with Oakland and the Angels, as opposed to Baltimore having to finish with some of the East teams who are still hot and heavy in that race, like Tampa and Toronto, who's not going to give their position players days off, and they're going to play every game to win because they got to get in the playoffs as well. So I just think Baltimore has a little bit tougher road, 3.5 out. Got to play 4 games better than any other ball club if they go 500. So it'll be one of those things that'll be interesting come down the end.
So let's take that and inverse it in the NL. I want to start off in a different route here. So the way Houston's already mailed it in, the Dodgers have done the same thing in the National League. So out in the National League now, NL West, they are 19 games above the Padres, 36 games above the Rockies. Like, give me a break. Wow. So not a surprise given their payroll, given how that team is run. Dodgers are going to be in it year to year right now. They're the modern day Yankees, so to speak, as far as how they're operating. So listen, they're also, I've read a lot of articles on them. This is not just going and signing $200 million players every day. They find those middling guys that they give a chance to, and sometimes they hit on it. That's called good scouting in my book.
Yeah, I mean, you got computer scouting, you got regular scouting. I think they combine them and balance them out well. They're very good at acquiring players, getting the best out of them, and then they DFA them and put them on and bring in the next guy to try to chew up some innings. And then when they hit on a guy, they'll keep them there for a little bit longer. But they're able to do that with their payroll. I mean, that's just the simple facts of what baseball is right now. You got your upper level echelon teams who can do what they want to do with their money, and I'm not worried about giving a guy a few $100,000 to come in and see what he can do. You look at some of the guys that they brought in that never pitched for him, that they had to pay. Cole Hamels, gave him $1 million, came in, pitched 2 simulated games, and then was shut down for the full year. I believe Danny Duffy is the same way. They traded for him, gave him, picked up the last year of his contract, and he's on the IR all year and hasn't pitched for him. So they can make mistakes. The money can cover that up, where other teams like Baltimore, Milwaukee, Chicago, the Pirates, obviously, Cleveland, they can't make those same mistakes, and they got to be really spot on with it. So at the end of the day, the Dodgers are who they are. They're very deep. They're a well-oiled machine right now, and they have a lot of money spent. So they're, in my opinion, in the National League, the favorites and the team to beat.
And that's where, that West was a very scary division once upon a time, but now we got the Rockies, the Giants, Diamondbacks. They're all off to, reflect on their life. They should go do some meditation, yoga, and figure out where their placing is, because it's hard when you're facing the Dodgers. Plus the Padres are so aggressive. Like the Padres seemingly, much like the Mariners, are making a trade literally every day or every other day, doing whatever it takes. And the Padres may in fact slide in there, but the Dodgers is a foregone conclusion. The Central, I want to save it to itself for a moment, but right now the Cards are clearly going to be going in. That's looks like it's done. They were neck and neck all year. It was, I thought that the Brewers were going to pull it off, but for several miracles, which we're going to discuss in the second half, that the Cardinals seem to have that magic right now. So I'm going to assume you agree, Cardinals in, done deal in that division at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say done deal with 24 to play, but it's pretty high percentage that the Cardinals are going to win that division. I mean, the Brewers have 4 games left against them. They would have to win all 4 games, obviously, and then they would have to go on a nice little run and kind of win 5 or 6 in a row in between winning those 4 games. So the Brewers got the Mets and the Yankees in back-to-back series. It's going to be really tough, especially if they face that that New York pitching staff on all the way through those 6 games. I think, in my opinion, they have to win each of those series, at least 2 out of 3, and maybe sweep one of those series to have a chance at the division. But they're 2.5 games behind the Phillies in that wild card. The wild card is going to be neck and neck all the way to the very end. And I think at this point, I think that's the best chance.
So that division, we'll discuss it, and I think it's a very interesting example. I know you, having spent the last part of your coaching career with the Brewers, and understanding them, this is more. It's more based on what went right for the Cardinals, what did not go as right for the Brewers. But we'll save that for a moment. The talk of baseball right now, division wise, has to be that NL East. And wow, the Braves, the Mets, the Braves. Are you kidding me, Steve?
It's typical, isn't it? I mean, that's a rivalry between the two. It always seems like those two teams, have come down to the wire quite a bit over the last 20 years. They're always good, right? I mean, the Mets had a huge lead in that division, and the Braves somehow figured out a way to climb back in. The Braves are a sneaky team that has a lot of potential. They have young starters, and then they have a lot of their core locked up. They're getting Albie's back. Riley's in that lineup. Swanson, Acuna, like Olsen. Like, you can go on, and it's a team that is really smart in how they spend their money and how they lock up their guys and do it super early. I mean, they just locked up their rookie Harris for 8 years and 72 million. And they have him long term too. So they identify their core, they identify their players, and they do what they do. And that's what they did in the 90s with all their players. And that's why they have a tremendous run and tremendous players and chemistry throughout the years, because those guys play together. They become friends, and they play for each other.
Don't think that the moment doesn't pass by. Living here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, there isn't talk about the Blue Jays and what they were thinking, not locking up Anthopoulos, keeping him in charge, because you could see the recipe of what he left with the young core and where it was headed. And, when the Braves win the World Series, Toronto fans are sitting there saying, that could have been us. Why? So you never know in life, obviously. But the man did okay for himself, going off to the Dodgers, was a VP there for a little bit, goes to Atlanta, and coincidentally, they win the World Series. I don't think there's a coincidence. Meeting up with Fred Claire, seeing the kind of person he was, no surprise this man was a champion. I bet you we brought Anthopoulos and we heard him talk. I bet you we'd have the same Fred Claire vibe with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Smart man, identifies what he needs at the trade deadline and acquires the players like he did last year with Rosario, Soler, Jock Peterson, and they're veteran players who he was able to fill in because they had injuries. And he did the same thing this year. He plugged in a couple of players, and they just keep on trucking. But again, when you have 6 or 7 players who are the core of your team, who you can run out there every day and you can count on, it makes it a lot easier just to kind of plug and place some of these other ones where injuries occur.
But one thing Atlanta does not have, they do not have Scherzer, they do not have DeGrom, and they do not have Timmy Trumpet playing when Diaz comes out from the bullpen. And Mets fans, I got to say, that song and that closer has electrified that team. It's amazing how it seems like Major League Baseball is literally going nuts for this guy right now and his entrance theme. On par or more than Mariano with Enter Sandman, simply because it has literally captivated all of baseball. And it's being played all the time on social media. It's so fun to watch. I can't imagine what it's like sitting in New York and hearing the music blasting, him coming out for the ninth, blowing everybody away. New York fans must be loving this right now.
Yeah, I think it's something for them to hold on to grab onto. And when they hear that song, they obviously know that they're winning. And the opportunity to win the ball game is in Diaz's hands. And they trust him right now. He's having a tremendous year, and he's taking the ball when he needs to. And it's been a lot of fun to watch. I mean, it's going to be interesting, these two teams coming down the stretch, to see who wins that division, because whoever wins that division is going to get a bye. Whoever doesn't win that division is going to be one of the wild cards and going to have to play in that first 3-game series to meet the next team.
You were a betting man right now. You going Mets or Braves if you had to pick one? Who do you think is going to do it?
I have not looked at either one of their schedules, to be honest with you. I don't know what the strength of schedule is, but if I was a betting man, I would go with the Braves to win that division.
I'm going with the Mets on this one. I'm fired up. There's this, I love that whole electricity that's following them right now. A person, though, who's a lifelong Mets fan who is very upset right now is Mr. Superfan Jerry Seinfeld. Don't know if you saw this one in the media or not. I think I said it to you actually the other day, but Jerry is quite upset with the Mets right now because the Mets went off and brought Timmy Trumpet live and had him playing the theme song for Diaz trotting out from the bullpen live during a game. Jerry believes that this was overreaching. We haven't won any damn thing yet. And this is what has caused, he believed, to be some sort of curse on the Mets and has downed their season. Do you agree or disagree with Mr. Jerry Seinfeld on this one?
I disagree. Sorry, Jerry. If you want to run the team, I'm sure you have enough money. You could have bought the team when they were up for sale instead of Mr. Cohen, and then you could have run it the way you wanted to. But I don't believe in these curses and these different things. I think that certain guys can get overzealous and let their ego take over a little bit, and the game will humble you in a hurry. But it seems like it's just in gist. It's a lot of fun. It's like Mariano, Enter Sandman. When he was playing, he was coming in the game. You felt really good about it. And this song with Diaz is the very similar way, and it gives something as Mets fans to hold on to because they needed something, right? Over the last couple of years where they've been disappointed.
I just thought of something because the conspiracy theorist in me kind of ponders these sometimes. I think Jerry did this on purpose now that I think about it. I think Jerry wants to get the Mets fans and the Mets mad at him and riled up and say, we'll show you, Jerry. We'll play despite this. This is not going to affect us. I think he's actually trying to subconsciously inspire the Mets. So they put up a picture of him in the locker room and say, screw him. We're going to do this, just like in Major League. I know Jerry loves the Mets. He's said that on many occasions. He could have had them at some point. I think now with the value of Major League franchises, regardless of his comedy routines and syndication, I don't think even Jerry has the money anymore to own a Major League Baseball team on his own. I think that ship has sailed. He's going to have to sell some more of those classic Porsches. But I agree with you. I don't think that at all causes. I think it's almost a similar thing like with the Yankees. You just cannot stay hot all year. It's going to happen. You're going to have hot streaks and cold. It's 162 games. I mean, it's impossible, right? Like, and if you're going to get cold at any point, get cold way before the end of the playoffs, not like the week before.
Yeah, but the only problem is both those teams might come close to 100 wins, and it would be really hard to win 97 games and be a wild card team, right? I mean, the Dodgers are going to probably be over 100 wins, obviously, yes. And so are the Mets and the Atlanta be close to it. And just the way it's set up in Major League Baseball, there can only be one division winner. It doesn't just go by records and push the other division winner out. You win your division, you obviously are in the top three, 1, 2, 3. Even though the third team that wins the division will have the third best record, and they'll still have to play in that first round. But the way it's set up, you got to live with it. Everybody knows the rules before the season starts, and you play the season out, and you try to position yourself the best come down the stretch, and we'll see what happens.
If you're the Mets or Braves, it's the difference in getting a bye or having to play that first round. And I think that's a real key thing to play for. But the wild card in the NL is pretty much set up versus the American League. We know that the Atlanta Braves and the New York Mets are getting in one way or the other. It's between the Padres, the Phillies, and the Brewers. And man, it is tight in those little spots, and somebody is not going to make it.
That is very true. Obviously the fourth wild card, Mets, Braves, right? You just count that. Philly's got to play the East teams. The Brewers play mostly the Central, and the Padres got to play the West, right? So they got to play the Dodgers, I think, like 7 more times, and the Dodgers just aren't going to give up. So they're going to have to really, grind down and see. The only problem is Eric Lauer left with some elbow discomfort in Colorado, I saw, and then Freddie Peralta last night left with some shoulder fatigue. So they're down 2 starters. They have obviously Burns, Woodruff, that are leading the pack there, and then they have some other guys that they just they need to fill in with and try to ride this out as long as they can every 5th day. So that's where it becomes tough. Injuries have hurt them all year long. Their offense has been inconsistent all year long. Unfortunately, they live and die by the home run. So we'll see if they get hot down the stretch and see if Philly gets cold. And I think that's the best opportunity for the Brewers to get in is Philly doesn't play to their potential and take care of business against some of the weak NL East teams that they may face in, Washington and Miami.
I was originally against this whole additional wild card teams and all this, but I got to tell you, it's brought a lot more hope to a lot more fans and cities. It's made the races that much more greater. And you know what? It's working out real nice. I'm actually quite pleased with this. It'll just be the only frustration will be is if we finish with like 5-way ties or something like that and all these deal breakers that we got to figure out. But I hope we have it all settled by the end of the season. So a lot of good playoffs to be had.